Bryan Searle, how are you?
Very good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
You have been the president of the Farm Bureau for some time. You're in your last term. I saw you speak before you knew who I was at the Farm Bureau convention this year, and I've been wanting to speak with you since. Like I chat with a lot of people from ag, but there was something that you said that I really wanted to follow up on because you got up and you were making a lot of comments and you're working the room. You're walking around the room. It's like, he's working the room. I was standing in the back. I was like, where's he
elected. It's all right.
You're great. And you had made a comment about growing food and growing the crop as best you could. And it appeared that you got a little choked up at the time. And I was standing in the back of the room and I was like, man, I'm not a farmer, but like that means something different. And understanding at the rudimentary way, the gamble you take every year when you engage in crop production and the risk and the heartache, and then learning later that ag and farming and ranching is like the #1 suicide industry in the country. Having been the leader for these people and advocating for them and trying to help them as much as you could in this state, what is the experience for the farmer in Idaho?
Well, Matt, you're bringing back those emotions, and I'm holding back the tears, but
I got tissues right there.
well, that's good. I have a great love for agriculture. I always have. And I see it every day. I see people have successes, and I see failures. In a business that we had back a few years in a potato warehouse and brokerage business, we lost a partner because of some things that went on in the business and people not paying, and he couldn't handle it. He exited this life very quickly, and so that's a reality that's there and has made me be more aware. But the love to get a seed, put it in the ground, and see what you can do to get a potato crop or, a grain, and what kind of production you can get. And you get the vision of what's going to happen with that. Where's it going once that's harvested? The smiles on individuals as they eat that French fry or they that loaf of bread or whatever it is. Just brings some satisfaction. And even though it's a gamble and hard, it's so deep in my blood and love for it. I've always said you can't sit home and complain about anything until you get involved. And I've taken that approach throughout my life that you got to get involved. And I've done everything I can to be involved, to be a voice for agriculture. At the same time, keep my feet rooted on the ground and growing and participating in agriculture each day to this day. I may not want to change a gearbox on a pivot so much and lift those things, but the love to see that potato seed go on the ground and see what comes out and goes in the cellar, and hope to heck that there's a good price that you can pay the bills and pay the bank back and go do it again the next year.
I mean, listen, you're a real positive guy.
Got to be a farmer.
I've never been a farmer. Okay. Mm-hmm. I did start a business when I was 22, and through no fault of my own, that business disappeared when I was 39. I had 3 kids. I had a wife. I had a house. I had a 1-line resume. I was a self-made man, self-employed, and it was SAT prep. And at the age of 39, the United States decided the SAT was no longer valuable for college admissions. Now, listen to me. That may not be relevant to a lot of people, but if the only job you have is to get kids a little bit better at math and a little bit better at grammar as best you can, and then send them off to the test and try to make their life a little better, that's a real problem. I also happen to be living in one of the most expensive states in the country, in one of the most expensive areas of that state. And I had to take a hard look at myself and just say, like, okay, what value do I have here in this community? What am I even going to, am I going to go to tech sales? Like, here I got, at the time, my oldest was, I think, 9. And I remember looking at my wife and saying, listen, I will do whatever I have to do. But let's be clear. If I take this pivot, if I decide like, okay, yeah, I'll go into tech sales, like kiss it goodbye for like 4 or 5 years, because I don't know anything about tech sales. I know how to get kids better at math. I know how to get kids better at grammar, and I'll slay whoever I have to slay to do it, but it's going to be hell. And again, that was such a painful experience to know that I had not done anything wrong. It's not like I touched a kid or something. Like I didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. Everyone was successful. Mm-hmm. Everybody was having a good time. I was doing everything I could. And just the way of the world ended it. And when I heard you talking about that and realizing that that's something you guys face every single year, that it's like, look, man, you do the best you can do. This could be the last year. How do you face that?
I think that they always talk about the optimism of a farmer. Next year, wait till next year. Just wait till next year. Because there has been many sleepless nights. And you're looking at the ceiling thinking, okay, I know what the price of commodities are today. I know what my loan at the bank is today. How are we going to survive? Sometimes a little hope and faith goes in that, and some prayers, and you just say, with optimism, we're going to go forward. And we've lived through those times. Not everybody has. And as you said, no fault of their own. There are so many things. Mother Nature, we have no control over Mother Nature. If a hailstorm comes in or a frost or whatever can wipe your crop out in minutes, it's gone. And I've seen it. I've seen grain just laying on the ground. And, people say, well, you're subsidized, you're all that. Not really. There's a little insurance here and there for some hail insurance, or there's a little crop insurance or whatever. Potato industry, that's really never been there. It's a pure gamble. And you're laying it on the line. And so you go forward and you look at ways, just like what you talked about. You look at ways, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? What can I branch out? Through our life, we've had opportunities. We had a little trucking business at one point. We had a little potato warehouse. Then we went into brokerage potato businesses, and that's where we lost that partner in that business, because we had a warehouse that went broke, and we owed growers a lot of money. And luckily, my brother and I, we had some other things going on that we got through. But for this gentleman, a good friend and partner, just couldn't bear it. And during that time, our son had been T-boned, and we were living with him at the hospital. Didn't know if he'd live or not live. And so we weren't in connection. So as we went through that time, which is a very emotional time, miraculous, and he's alive today, and thank God for that. But all of a sudden, this business partner who had spent nights at the hospital for us, he's gone. I get a call at 5 a.m. My brother said, it's not good. Stace is gone. And I'll never forget that. And you hurt, but you go on. You go forward, and you just as you have to keep your chin up. And I've always said, I guess, if because the weather or because commodity prices aren't there or whatever, disease comes in, they're constant. They're constantly in our face. Diseases and whatever that we have no control over, all of a sudden it's there. And we run that risk. That's the nature of the business. Flip side is, there's nothing that brings, in my opinion, more joy, satisfaction to raise your children. We have 5 children, to raise them on the farm, to have them involved, to work, to learn how to work, because that's the key, in my opinion, to success. If you know how to work and you lose your job or whatever else, you will work, you will find, and you will do whatever it takes to do that. Now we got almost 17 grandchildren, and they come at potato harvest, and they come during grain harvest, and they learn how to work. And that, to me, is the success of this thing. And heaven forbid, but if we lost the farm, it would be disastrous, but we'd have to find other ways to provide that. But I think there's more to life at times than making the dollars that are there. And I think keeping that in focus in our lives, my wife and I's life and others, has been keep it all in focus. Doesn't mean the stress isn't there. Doesn't mean it's sleepless nights. Doesn't mean any of that. But that's really what we strive to do each day, is say, hey, we're only here on this earth for who knows how long. So let's make the best of everything that we got. And that's kind of been, that's the way we go about it each day.
At your Farm Bureau convention, there was a youth member organization that, got up and did a debate amongst each other. I think there were 4 of them up on stage. I remember watching that. And I remember seeing a lot of younger people there as well, come to engage. But it seems like such a catch-22, because when you're younger, you obviously need this gigantic asset of land to make things happen. And you don't have the overhead. You're scraping by trying to get, income, trying to make it happen. And as you get older and you accumulate more land and you have more essentially asset to play with, you're also exposed to way more risk and way more, liabilities. And it just seems like there's no place where you're like, hey, just get past this hump and you're good. Like you get this much acreage, you're set. Like you get this much crop, you're set. And because of that, I left that wondering, like, how are we going to attract our next generation of farmers? How are we going to attract our next generation of ag industry?
Well, Matt, it's a great question. And that's why we have our Young Farmer Rancher program. And they were having a discussion meet, and they're learning those things that will help them to endure and to be successful, to support and to see opportunities that are out there, and open that door that's there. So the love is still there. And my son, the one that was in the accident, we've got 3 sons, but the one that was in the accident is farming today. He's feeling that pressure of the risk. And to be honest, as dad, there's days it's like, let me just take the little bit I got here and let me hold on to it so that we don't end up losing it. But it's providing that for our son Ray and for his family and for all of our family that's there. So I believe that next generation is supported. Do you see as many first generation farmers? Pretty darn tough when land's $20,000 an acre. You couldn't farm that out of, if you just started and said, well, I'm going to go buy land and pay $25,000 an acre and sell it on commodities, it'd be very, very difficult. But as long as there's established operations, there's operations for this next generations to be managers, we see the size of farms get larger. We don't have as many, potato farmers or whatever the crop is. There's not as many farmers, and we continue to lose them. But there are other opportunities that they can go work and be a farm manager on a farm. They can get in and support agriculture if that's their love. Or they can get into family farm, and they can work through those times. And it wasn't easy for me, and probably won't be easy for them. But there are good things. There are such good things that come from just having the opportunity to be your own boss, to take on the challenge, to put a seed in the ground, to do your budget and do everything you can to accomplish that. And I think that's what we're trying to do to help our young farmers and ranchers, is to do that. Let's support them. Let's get them the needed things they need, so that they understand that there's opportunities there for them, and open those doors up, and also make sure they're aware that there's support when it isn't going so well. And there are other opportunities in life that if it doesn't work, there's another opportunity for you to go do something else that, just like you said, you found it. And I think that's what we have to remember. There's no really business out there you're guaranteed, okay, huge success. Here we go. It's easy.
Yeah, things aren't guaranteed. I think that's just the reality, that no matter what you do, when you engage in an enterprise like this, nothing is guaranteed. But that takes, like, my wife and I started our tutoring company, and that was our livelihood. And we have other family members that are just teachers that just went to teach for school districts. And my problem with that was like, listen, I do not have confidence that I'll be able to provide for my family in the way that I want to if I go teach just for a school. And I love teaching, and I got very few skill sets. Like, you want to get me with some geometry in front of a kid, I'll nail that one, right? But that's not for everyone. And just inherent in this endeavor, you have to be the type of person who is willing to put your butt on the line, to be an entrepreneur, to accept the risk of everything involved. And that's what's so wild about farming to me. It's like there's no halfway in. You're all in. Like you're betting the farm. Like that's where that phrase comes from. And it seems like such an audacious endeavor. And so, again, as somebody who had a business that is gone now, look, I didn't move to Idaho looking for a job. I did it again too, right? Like I put my hat back in the ring and, started something else. Like, I got to give it a shot. That's just who I am. But that's not like the average person. The people that are willing to go into farming, especially knowing like I can sit here and improve my video quality. I can improve the audio quality. I can come up with a funny joke. Not really, but it's like, that's the idea if I'm trying to be entertaining.
Right.
But like, that's all stuff I have control of. And just the idea that you need a class of people that just have, excuse my language, but balls of steel to go in and day out. Man, that just seems like a character. It's like they don't build them like that anymore.
And I would agree that they're not quite built like they used to be. I watch my own children. I watch my father and how he, on the farm, he did everything. As we came along, that's how we were taught. My brother and I, we were taught you do everything. And we did everything. But as we grew the farm, all of a sudden it was like, maybe we would be more efficient if we didn't sit on the tractor for 18 hours a day. And maybe there is someone out there that could do that, and we can go plan and we can go do some other things. But I think the thing that drives us in agriculture is, and every business has this, but there's a need for food. Everybody has that need every single day. And to know that bushel of wheat is going to make that pasta, or going to help supply the nutrients and nutrition that people need, is just it just drives you. It's really hard to explain, but you always talk about it gets in your blood, and the fact that you see that vision. And I love, go in the store, and my poor wife's like, okay, here he goes. But what do? I go right over the potatoes and I look at them all and I'm like, hey, where's your produce manager? These potatoes can't be left out in the light because you've turned them all green and they're not going to taste so well. So, you gotta handle that different, but it's just so into you and ingrained in you that you want to provide for the world food, something that is vital and needed every single day. It drives you. And there's, like I've mentioned already, there are a lot of other reasons that are there, but to take that and to take the challenge, I love challenges, most challenges, but I love challenges that come and say, how can we do better? In the ag industry, it's been fun. We've varied our seed on the potato side. We've spacing. Did that 20 years ago, and we ran yield monitors on our harvesters. And I remember the first time that happened, our field man just went out with his pickup and he drove circles in the field for different zones to space our seed. And you say, why space the seed different? Because the soil varies so much in a field. So where the richer soil is, you can bring your seed a little closer, and where it's not as fertile, you go a little wider. And we saw a more consistent side with increase in yield. And so we did those things. I love those kind of challenges. And then you get the yield monitor and you see that strip that you did and said, well, the yield was better, the size was better, and the quality was better. It's like anything in life, any job, the challenge to do better, and it rests with us. Now, again, I can't control a hailstorm or a frost or prices, oversupply that drives prices down, or whatever it is, but there's a lot of things that we can do to really take the interest and the pride in growing the best crop we can, the best quality, to provide that food for the world.
Farming as an industry is something that has maintained a value of tradition and aggregated generational knowledge in areas that have not done that. For instance, I can A/B test every single video. First off, my dad doesn't know anything about video editing, right? I come and have a conversation. I can A/B test. I can tweak things on the fly. I can, like this is my 5th interview today, right? Like I get to have this and change things as I go. If you're a farmer and you farm 50 years, you got 50 shots. And if you're starting from zero, it's just impossible for you to figure out what needs to be figured out in order in the near term to get where you need to go. You can't reinvent the wheel. And because of that, you're hyper reliant on the generations that came before you to help you understand what the best, and then hopefully you add something in. Hopefully you take that knowledge and you tweak something. But that seems to create tighter generational dependencies, because as you get older and you're physically less able to do more things, you have aggregated knowledge and accumulated knowledge that can be passed down to the people who do have the stronger backs and get out there. Do you feel like that creates better families?
I do. I really take my hat off to my own father. As I started into this farming thing, got married, and I was like, let's go. And I had all the energy. Ideas and energy. I was like, hey, let's try this. Let's try that.
Let me show you how it's done, Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
God, I know that.
He just looks at you like,
you idiot.
Seriously? But he had an open mind, and he allowed some of those things to happen. And when they did happen, we saw little results at times. And so I appreciated that. And now, there's things that my son will say, and I kind of roll my eyes and think, Ray, I don't know. But I believe the communication and the willingness to work together, I really count myself blessed and lucky. I've always got along with my dad. I've farmed with my brother now for years and years and years, since we were in our early 20s. We've always got along. Is it perfect? Not 100%, but it's 95. We've found our places and worked, and now we don't do as much together. He's got some sons. He's got a lot of sons farming, 4 sons farming, and I've got one. And so a few years back, we decided, hey, our relationship's more important. When you talk about that family, we want to keep that, because you bring that next generation in, they're kind of saying, well, Uncle Brian's kind of an idiot or whatever, and
they might be right. But
they're probably right. I agree with that. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens on the other side. And so it could have been done, and we could have figured it out. We didn't have a real issue, but you know what? We were able to separate a lot of our farm, and we still have some things together. The way we did it was almost like drawing names for Christmas. We sat down in a room and we put 2 trucks that were alike, and they drew out, and you got number 5, you got 10, you got 12, you got 15. And we just separated stuff. And when we got to the bottom of the line of the spreadsheet and added all the numbers up, we came out so close. It was amazing. We were laughing. We were having fun. We continue to help each other, support each other, love each other. So families can be there. Flip side, it's brutal when they don't, and it's ugly. And when families fight and really get into it, it's the worst there is, because then there's no Thanksgiving dinner. You get a job and you're not happy with somebody in town that you're working with. At least you can go home and have Thanksgiving dinner together as a family. So this is, in agriculture on the farm, you're doing, this relationship thing's important, because you want to get together at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and you want to be able to be in the same room. So you have to work at that. It's not something that's easy. It takes a lot of communication, and there are many who do that, and there are many who it doesn't work out so well. Again, it comes all back to communication, planning. That's why it's exciting. When you brought up the Young Farmer Rancher program, it gets me excited. I started there a long time ago. I started in that program, and I met people. I met friends. I met young and old, and they were mentors to me. And I asked them, what do you do? To this very day, particularly in Farm Bureau, when I was first elected president over 9 years ago, I've got to know every president in the nation, and we've got a relationship. And driving down the road on a bus to an event or to a board meeting or whatever, we stand in the hall. I pick their brain on what works for you in your Farm Bureau organization, and I learn, and I come back and say, hey, we ought to take a look at this. Some of it doesn't go anywhere, and some does. I think the same thing happens in our own families, our own lives, our own businesses. And in order to make that happen, there's nothing fancy about me. There's nothing that, I'm different or better than anybody else. It is just taking that mindset to say, we're going to do our best to communicate, make things work, because you get in-laws and outlaws and children and all that stuff in that mix in this operation. And it can get pretty ugly at times. And again, we faced a little of that, but nothing, there's times you have to just rally the wagons around and say, hey, let's just chat. Let's figure this out. And you do that, and you go forward and do the best you can. And so I think it can work. And you talked about the generational gap and closeness in the family. It can really work well. But my neighbors, one partner, he's thrown a few fists at his brothers, and he's not in that partnership anymore. They can be in the same room, but I've been in the same room with them when they haven't been getting along, and it's not pretty, right? When you're in Sizzler and somebody stands up and starts yelling, and you're like, I think I'll go wash dishes now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's not easy, but it can be done.
I actually have a dear friend whose wife grew up on a vineyard in Lodi, and they had 4 girls in the family and then 2 brothers, and parents passed away, and I think they had somewhere over 1,000 acres of vines, and it totally tore the family apart. Like they were having to go. I heard from my friend, he was like, yeah, man, it's like we're going to Easter. We have like 3 lawsuits against each other. It's like, but we want to get the cousins together, the nieces and nephews, see each other. And it was like, how do you, like, what a just rough situation. But I speak with a lot of ag people, and the sense of reliance on each other is something that seems daunting, and at the same time, I don't think empowering is the right word, but it's like we don't have communities anymore. Like I live in a community, right? I live in a neighborhood, and it's like we don't need anything from each other ever, right? Like the most somebody do be like, hey, can you run across the street because I think like I left my curling iron on or something. I'm not going. My wife's going, but but we don't have that reliance on each other at all. Like, and in my previous community, I tried to, help people and be there for people. And what was really, kind of eye-opening eventually, it's like, oh, you guys are good with us. We go out to get a pizza, we get 2. We bring one home and leave it on your doorstep. You didn't ask, or we're getting Thai food, I'll get an extra entree, or I'm making a big thing of, brisket at home. I'm bringing some brisket over. Trying to promote, like jumpstart that sense of community. And it killed me because, our neighbors had this phrase. They're like, you got totted, right? Because the idea is like, oh, they're like Matt or Todd brought over, some food to you. But that sense of community in the ranching and farming is necessity. Like it seems like it's a requirement if you're gonna, you might have cattle that get out, or you might have some harvest that needs to be done real fast for whatever reason, and people are there and you're there, right? Out of necessity. Because if you stand alone by yourself, it's like, well, nobody's helping you with those cattle. Like nobody's helping you harvest that crop, and you got a time window for whatever reason, or you got an emergency, or you're sick or whatever. Like things have to happen, and no man can be an island like that and not sustain successfully forever.
Matt, that's very interesting, because in agriculture, as in any business, it's very competitive. A farm comes for sale, everybody's bidding on it. A farm's for rent, everybody's over there bidding against their neighbor, and it's very competitive. And some are your best friends, and they're over there trying to, work a deal to take them golfing and whatever. Add the little perks, the pizzas. I don't care what, but they do some of that. And so it's extremely competitive, and there is, feelings that way. But when you talk about the heart of someone in agriculture, when there's a need, in my opinion, there's none better. And we've all seen it, but there's times when a frost is coming, or the farmer's wife passed away, and combines all went down the road, and some left fields that actually had some of their own crops still growing, or to be harvested, and they went down the road and harvested all, the individual's crop that had a tragedy in their life. I mentioned our son's accident. The love and what can we do and how can we help? And do you need me to go sit on a potato planter? And it was amazing. And I've seen that my entire life. It's predicting that the weather's going to get down to 15 degrees and it's going to stay cold. That'll damage potatoes in the ground. It'll freeze them. And you may not even have anything there to harvest. So what happens? People just take their equipment, trucks, crews, no questions asked. They don't say, hey, if I show up, how much will you pay me? They go down the road. They just start harvesting. People show up. People show up with pizzas. It is amazing, the heart of a farmer when there is a need. So you go from one side to the other, and like you say, they are that community, but it is competitive when it comes to particularly land. We're losing land. And as we continue to lose land, the need and the demand is still there. So you either pay more and figure out how to make that work, or you're outbid and you can be out of business. So you can take that personal and get a little upset at farmer X, Y, or Z. But the heart and the love that farmers have, I've been in those situations several times, and you all come together, and the pizzas show up or whatever, and you sit and you chat, and the gratitude for each other is just, that's what it is. That's why we do it. It makes you talk. We talked about our personal family and what's there, but there's a larger family, and truly they are there to support in time of need. That, as you talk community, that community is still there. It exists. And when you hear of a need, it is amazing to me what happens.
You talk about losing land. I think it's since 2017, we've lost 75 acres of production land per day consistently. And, you're driving down the acreage available, which means if you got the same number of people going after fewer acres, cost goes up. Same times, idiots like me move in and drive in, people trying to build houses.
Call that. Come on now.
Well, it's rough. It's rough. You know what? It's one of those things where you just look at life. You're like, this is what life is. This is what life has thrown me. I didn't do anything wrong. I have found myself and my family in this position. I didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. These are just things that happen. But you have those issues going through where you have, decreased land, same number of people going after land. The land's becoming more expensive because houses are getting built on it. You got all these problems that, start going after it. And it's amazing that farmers have been able to figure out a way to keep it going. It's amazing the ingenuity and how they've been able to work it out when you have an ever increasing cost of land, and then always the nuclear option of just sell to the developer. And the fact that you guys keep going is it's mind-boggling to me.
Well, it goes back to that love for the land, and it is challenging because the land out there, and you look at it, you've worked your whole life, and all of a sudden someone comes in and says, hey, I'll give you this amount of money for your land. And you start to run the numbers and go, that's more than I made on the farm in 40 years.
Right.
And I can do it in one sale and have the money and move on with life. And so, and it gets into private property rights. it's very difficult when individuals own that land. They should have rights, and they do. They have private property rights, and we work every day to protect those. So if they see the dollar signs and what's there, it's difficult because some of that land is very productive. Maybe some of it's not as productive. Um, this has been a discussion, very hot discussion topic, and particularly within Farm Bureau for several years. Ag land protection areas last year, and the legislation that passed. It's an opportunity for individuals to have some protection, but again, it's really hard to say, well, your land is productive, so make sure you don't sell that, but yours isn't so much, so you can. You're taking away those private property rights. And so it is a tough one. It's very hard, but truly, we're going to continue to lose land because we only have so much water and we only have so much dirt. And it's in the nation the same way. And as we continue to grow and what happens, but I think that's where the ingenuity of farmers and ranchers, we figure out how to produce more out of an acre. We figure out how to get, better weights out of those steers quicker and those types of things. I think back when my father raised potatoes, and I know what his budget was and goal was, and ours today is double that at least. And so you work to find ways, but when you do that, a lot of times it takes more money and equipment and all the rest. So you're not playing the penny slots anymore. You're paying the $1,000 slot or whatever, right, if they had one. They pull the handle down, and it's a lot on the line that you're laying on the line. And when you get a little discouraged and prices aren't there and commodity prices, or those times you're like, if they want to pay me that money and I get away. And so I can sell out and get away from, the financial risk and what's there. And that is, it's concerning. It concerns me, but I don't have a solution. And we've gone through committee for 3-4 years within Farm Bureau. Our members spoke very loudly a few years ago and said we need to do something. And that committee, we felt like we'd have legislation the first year that happened. That was like the convention you were at.
Right.
It was in December. We felt like in that first session we'd have something. Well, the committee got together and went into subcommittees and went through the first year and second, and a few things started to surface. But again, you start to take away private property rights. So we have strong, feelings about that.
Yeah,
Everybody
right.
have it. So there's not a straightforward answer to that. Goal is to continue to protect everything that we possibly can, and make, just get production, just continue with research and development and all that's there. A lot goes into that to improve our production.
Bryan, listen, man, I really appreciate you. I appreciate you explaining this and telling your story in this. It's, we're losing these stories, right? And this is one of the great concerns I have for the state of Idaho. Idaho is going through a changing of age, and the people that made Idaho what it was, and the people that nurtured it and supported it and benefited and just made it the way it is, those people are getting slowly outnumbered, and they're fading away. And we need to preserve their stories, and we need to preserve their way of life and their culture, and help people understand that this is what made Idaho, Idaho. Because if we don't, we'll lose it forever. And I really appreciate your piece in this.
Well, Matt, I appreciate that. And I would invite anybody, whether you moved in or whatever, to come and get familiar with what goes on a farm or a ranch, where your food comes from, because there's so much misunderstanding of really what's going on. As mentioned, I have several grandchildren and children. There's nothing I put on my crop that's going to harm me or them. Why would I even risk that? Why would I even think that? And I can't do it all. I have to have labor. It's so critical to have labor that can do these things. So we love it, but at the same time, you fight that battle of misunderstanding, in my opinion, that they don't understand what it takes to get a crop grown, to provide that food and fiber. It doesn't just appear. It can't all be automated. You cannot, there are certain things that can, and there are certain things that cannot be automated. And some things probably never will be automated. But you're going into that, and there's not a money tree that says, well, we're going to automate it. Now just write your big old $1 million check for that robot. So that, as you mentioned that, I think that is so important that we do all we can to understand how our food and fiber is grown, what it takes. And I know there's farmers and ranchers in all areas of this state that are more than happy to open up their gates, open up their cellar doors, whatever it is, and say, come and look, come and see what we do, how we do this every day, and why we do this, and understand what it takes to get that. It's a year-long process every year. It doesn't just end at harvest and it's over. It goes on all year, the planning, preparing, every step of the way, and understand how important it is. We have to have water to grow crops. We have to. And so understand without water, we have no food. Without dirt, we have no area to produce it. So as we have a better understanding of that, hopefully people will appreciate the farmer and rancher. I think, and I'll end on this, sorry, I'm dragging it out, but please, I just think about during COVID, American Farm Bureau, we did a little campaign, and it was entitled Still Farming. And the appreciation for a farmer during the time of COVID, when there was empty shelves because food wasn't moving, there wasn't food out there that actually was there. People were concerned that, hey, if you all quarantined and went in your house and you locked yourself up, what are we going to eat? But the appreciation and respect of the integrity of a farmer went up several points, and I don't remember the percentages, but
way more than a teacher or a doctor.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much.
We were at the, right there at the top.
Related.
Exactly. So you just went boom like that. And why was it? Because they said, well, there's no food here. Where did it come from? It came from dirt, that water, that farmer, that rancher, or that dairyman, whatever it is. It came from them continuing to go forward. And that's what we want to do in Idaho. That's what we want to do in the nation and world. We want to provide, and working every day to provide safe food and fiber, and in order to do it, we have to have a labor supply. We have to have equipment and the water and the dirt and all of those things, and continue to do that. And so that gets to be challenged when all those things are there. But I really invite anyone, anytime. I'm always open to it. If you want to come and ride around July 15th and take a look at a potato field and figure out how things, what's involved, we can get you anywhere in this state, and you can see what it takes to get food on the table, and that invitation stands to anyone.
Listen, I'll take you up on that.
All right, good. Look forward to it.
So do I. Bryan, thank you for coming in. Thanks for what you're doing for Idaho.
Thank you. Appreciate you.